Welcome to Nusantara, the Southeast Asian archipelago. It is the birthplace of humanity, in our long journey of civilization. A homeland for human ancestors, for the last 1.5 million years. A place where our early ancestors have roamed a vast land of opportunity. Shared the space with many other wonderful creatures. Leave us the evidence of human evolution and their adaptation to the environment. Who are they? What do they look like? And how do they live their life? For almost 2 decades, the Center for Prehistory and Austronesian Studies has contributed to revealing the answers. Behind CPAS is a group of passionate scientists with global networking in prehistory and Austronesian studies. Our mission is to provide best practices in the framework of archaeological research and development, pushing the values of our research beyond the knowledge, reveals the national identity, enriches our understanding of cultural developments, unveil the reason behind our strong character of diversity. Narrates the story of ethnogenesis and the foundation of our nation-state. Preserving our past as a heritage for the wealth of our future generation.
Okay, I think it's me. It's my turn. Okay, good afternoon, Bapak Ibu semuanya. Maybe I will speak in Indonesia bahasa ya, because it's all in the Indonesian participants. Probably there is others participant from the Philippines. Welcome. So good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the CPAS online public talk show, the episode 18, with the Professor Eusebio Dizon as the main our main speaker, with the entitled the Austronesian Prehistory in the Philippines. So I will be fast for today because I'm the MC, and we will introduce our chairman, Prof. Truman, as a speaker for introduce this episode. For the Prof. Truman.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Ari. Okay, selamat sore ya. Selamat sore untuk semuanya. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the talk show organized by the Center for Prehistory and Austronesian Studies. We are so very glad to see you here in this occasion. So thank you very much, especially to Dr. Bong Dizon. Thank you, Pak Bong, for your time, and of course, for your contribution as the main speaker. Also, thanks to Daud. I saw him just now, and also to the moderator, Ami, and to all who has prepared this event. So the Center for Prehistory and Austronesian Studies has a monthly program called Talkshow. And according to the objective of this organization, the Talkshow is to persistently update our knowledge and broaden our outlook on the journey of the archipelago from the past to the present. And of course, by discussing new findings to enrich our knowledge and to broaden our view about the prehistory and Austronesia. So far, we have raised different issues concerning the prehistory and Austronesia by inviting experts across disciplines from Indonesia and also from abroad. And today we have the honor of Professor Dizon as our guest speaker. He's the most senior researcher in the National Museum of the Philippines. I think most of us, or maybe all of us, know who is Professor Bong Dizon. I myself, I know Professor Bong Dizon since a very, very long time ago. And I still remember in 1970s, if I'm not wrong, I met him for the first time in Manila when I attend or participate in the first SPAPA training in prehistory. I think you still remember this, Dr. Bong. At the time, there are delegation from Indonesia, from Thailand, and also from Vietnam, and also from Malaysia. And Dr. Bong at the time just returned from United States. He just finished his study there and gave us lecture. This is the first time I know him. And since then, we met frequently in many events. And also we involved with Daud in different international collaboration. And up to now, we still have the good contact. We always have communication one with each other. So thank you very much for your participation in this occasion, Pak Bong. And I think what you are going to talk is a very, very topical issue in Austronesia for this time. We know that the Philippines is a very strategic country to understand better about the Austronesian diaspora, because the Austronesian prehistory migrated from Taiwan by enter the Philippines, and from the Philippines goes to south to reach Indonesia, and also some of them reach Micronesia. So archaeological evidences so far convinced this event, the out of Taiwan migration, even also from the linguistic perspective, and some also opinion from a genetic perspective. So I think in this occasion we will be enlightened by Professor Dizon what happened in the Philippines in historic times regarding the migration and the occupation of the Austronesia. And it is very important for us, especially for Indonesia, to understand how the Austronesians arrived in Indonesia and then developed and spread to the other islands and even to outside of Indonesia until Pacific and also Madagascar. So in the end part of this talk show, we have Pak Daud, which will give a closing remark, by summarizing the highlights about the topic discussed. Thank you, Pak Daud, for your generosity. And he also has a lot of experience in doing research in the Philippines. I know that in collaboration with the Philippines, with Pak Bong, and also with Pak Peter Beluta. So this is the very appropriate researcher to give some closing remarks on this discussion. Okay, so for not to introduce long, let's enjoy this talk show to expand our knowledge through the speaker's presentation and discussion. And I hope to see you again in the next CPAS monthly talk show, hopefully. Thank you, Hari.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Truman Simanjuntak, as the chairman of the CPAS. Now I will invite our moderator, Dr. Mirza Ansori, the archaeologist at the CPAS. For the Dr. Mirza, welcome.
Thank you, Mas Hari Octavianus. Good afternoon, everyone. Selamat sore, magandang hapon for Bong Dizon and his students who attend this meeting, this talk show. Sorry. So, Professor Dizon is kindly agreed to share with us about the Austronesian prehistory of the Philippines, and he will tell us a lot about the remains, the archaeological discoveries in the Philippines, maybe from Batangas Island to Balut Islands. Is that true, Pak Dizon? So for those who don't know, Professor Dizon is a former researcher at the National Museum of the Philippines. He had given a lot of major contribution to the prehistory of the Philippines, and he was also the founding director of the Archaeological Studies program in University of the Philippines. It was in 1995, if I'm not mistaken, Pak Bong. And he's still active as a researcher and interest in Paleolithic, Neolithic, Metal Age, and Protohistory, including maritime archaeology. So he's very busy, apparently. So thank you very much, Prof. Dizon. And our second guest is Dr. Daud Aris Tanudirdjo, which is also, it doesn't really require a further introduction because he's very well known as an archaeologist and as a lecturer in Universitas Gadjah Mada. He graduated from Australian National University in 2002. And recently, Pak Daud became the delegation of Indonesian delegation to fight for designating the Yogyakarta philosophy axis. Would you like to share with us a little bit, Pak Daud, about this good news? That today, I think the United Nations have agreed to designate the Sumbu philosophy of Yogyakarta. So you are one of the delegation in Riyadh.
He can give it later.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
when delivering the closing remarks.
okay. Without further ado, Prof. Dizon, the mic is yours.
Okay, salamat pagi and good afternoon to all of you from Indonesia, and of course my beloved colleagues Truman, Simanjukta, Daud, and last time I was in August, I was with Pahari Wijanto. Unfortunately, he became sick while I am there. And I'm sorry, but you are all beloved to me. And of course, Mirsa, Haris of Guan, they were my former students and now colleague working in the prehistory of Southeast Asia. So good afternoon to all of you. And let us go now to my lecture without further ado. Retno was also an associate, a colleague, I think. I met her several times. Thank you. Can you share the screen now? So I have prepared this Austronesian Prehistory in the Philippines for this talk show on the CPAS. And I am now very much retired, but still being consulted by UNESCO Philippines for the nomination of the World Heritage Site of Tabon Cave just recently, Batanes, and maybe some parts of Cagayan Valley. So next slide, please. I am still teaching at the University of the Philippines. Next, please. So this is the reconstructed map of our colleague Peter Bellwood a long time ago, showing the prehistory from about 50,000 years to the more recent time, around 4,000, 3,000 years ago, where in the Austronesian movement, we map coming from southern China through Taiwan and Batanes, so around 3,000 BC or 4,000 years ago. And they come to the Philippines by boat in the islands of Batanes, and from there went directly to mainland Luzon and spread in the Pacific, in the Northern Marianas, and then of course going through Indonesia. But now I believe there are early dates in Indonesia regarding the occupation or colonization of what so-called the Austronesians. Who are these people? Before, they were only identified as in their language family called the Malayo-Polynesian, and then the Austronesian became more popular in the use of this language family similar to the Indo-European languages. And there are more than 350 million speakers now, according to my friend Bellwood, that still being used across the Pacific, across islands of Southeast Asia, wherein all our languages, Bahasa, Tagalog, Bisaya, Kapampangan, were all derived from this proto-language called Austronesian, including the area of Madagascar and then other parts of mainland Southeast Asia. So next slide, please. So from about 3,000 BC, early Austronesian in Taiwan, Batanes is still not inhabited, and let me just. Negrito hunter-gatherer population were in Luzon and Palawan since 50,000 years, and this is probably Cagayan Valley, in Calao Cave, Peña Blanca area, and then Palawan, Tabon Cave, wherein there are already evidences of human habitation. So from 2000 BC, the Austronesians entered Batanes from Taiwan by boat or raft, probably as the first human population. In Turungan Cave, where pottery of 1600 BC were found. I have the opportunity to have Pak Daud working there at Turungan Cave, where you can see his picture. 1000 BC, settlement of Sunget, 1200 BC to 300 BC, Taiwan slate materials and nephrite already present in Batanes. At Sunget and Anaro, these are sites which I will show later. Settlement of Anaro, which is around 1000 BC to AD 700. Settlement of Orchid Island, which is still a part of Taiwan, from Batanes from about 500 AD. Import of Taiwan slate, nephrite for making tools and ornaments at Anaro. So these Austronesians were carrying the materials that they will use for their cultural development, like slate, jade or nephrite, and even andesites that they quarry in their place of origin. AD 1, time of Christ in the Christian calendar. Anaro has iron, occupation of the Ijangs. These are mountainous settlement. Sabidug, Anaro, very intensive connection between Anaro and Orchid Island. Very large population on Batan and Naidi, Payaman, and Mahatao. These are all sites. So the movement did not come one time. There were crossing between those times, going back to Taiwan, meaning to say, and not necessarily one direction. AD 1000, eruption of Mount Iraya to very northern and central Batanes, Mahatao Bay, and modern town later built on top of 6 meters of volcanic ash. So, in fact, next year, our Japanese colleagues and our researchers from the National Museum will go back to Batanes with an approved funds to investigate the eruption sequence and the occupational thereafter its eruption, how people managed to come back and live again in Batanes. At AD 1687, William Dampier, he was actually an English explorer, and he was involved before the Spanish mission in Batanes. So that is the beginning of their historical written record. Yes, of course. Next slide. So this is the map of Batanes from Taiwan, southern Taiwan, and that is Lanyu. This is, and they go, Mabudi, Siayan, we have evidence there. I don't know if Padaud was there, I forgot already. But Dikay, Batan, Ibuhos, and Sabtang, and then Balintang, and then all the way to northern Luzon, the mainland Luzon, Nagsabaran, Irigainen, Magapit, Pamitan, and this is the Lalo area of Cagayan Valley, wherein you have massive shell-midden sediments that were occupied from early Neolithic to the Metal Age. The shell-midden were actually during the Metal Age. Next slide, please. This is the island of Itbayat. It's a raised corals. There is no shore. There's no beach. So people will have to climb this limestone formation to reach this land, this limestone formation. Next, please. It has habitation. This is the mouth opening at the sea of the of the cave in Torongan, and probably the Austronesian people came here to climb and to penetrate the cave area. Next, please. So here is Daud, in fact, and the late Clyde Hagoon and Jonathan Hakar, and whom some Indonesian colleagues know them very well, inside the Torongan cave, and they were doing some kind of excavation, recovering some pottery and evidence of human occupation, bone remains, and perhaps nephrite. Next, please. And these are the materials. Of course, this is bark cloth beater, evidence of change in lithic technology from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic. Batanes did not have Paleolithic tools, but mainly this. And then, of course, these are the nephrite. In fact, this one, particular one, was found by our most beloved colleague, Daud. I think he recovered this particular one, I remember. And these are the debitage of drilling core of nephrite, which are evidence of actual working on nephrite in Batanes using slate. These are slate materials to work for nephrite. And then, of course, the circle stamp pottery. This is from Batanes. This is from Taiwan. Almost exactly the same feature. And these are the early type of pottery that Austronesian speakers might have carried with them from Taiwan to Batanes. So we have a direct link, and not only from the language, but also from the archaeological record. So these are also Neolithic stone tools like chisel and adze debutants, of course. Next, please. So this is a reconstruction of Xiao Chung Hu on how to make this particular Ling Ling O type from Luyong. So there are many interpretations of this in Taiwan, not only a circular picture. Fortunately, we found some evidence of this as debitage from the workshop that they have in Anaro. Next, please. I'm sorry, my voice, actually, I did not have voice 2 days ago. So I'm trying to drink some ginger. So the type of Ling Ling O, which is very diagnostic, is because of this chromite feature that is mined in the southern Taiwan called the Pengtian. And this was analyzed by Isuka. And the distribution went from Batanes, Nia, Mau, and then some from Vietnam, in fact. We see this kind of pattern. So meaning to say they have one source and they keep coming back to that source and then going to their newly colonized territory in Southeast Asia. And maybe Indonesia has also some from the Pacific also, I think, but mainly Vietnam and then Philippines and Thailand has this kind of feature and coming from Eastern Taiwan. Next, please. So this is the map. Now they call it the 9-dash line of our colleagues from China, but it's supposed to be a Southeast Asian Sea. I have proposed this long time ago. So, but because it's South China Sea, because it's from South China. So this is the area of activities where the distribution of this Ling Ling O can be most found. Thailand, Vietnam, as I mentioned before, and Taiwan and Philippines, and Borneo, maybe here, and Palawan. Next, please. So here are more of the evidences of the lithics of adds and access during those times, Neolithic, and until I believe in the early Metal Age, they still use this. I've seen some of these kind in Indonesia when I was working in Punong. In fact, there is a Neolithic site that I have visited there with Patruman, in fact. Next, please. So this is Anaro, and it's a mound, like a plateau, and it's also made of limestones. And it's very shallow. When you excavate, you can already see the floor or the original limestone bed. But in between, you can find all these materials called lingling o, pottery, and sand tools. Here is Pa Daud, also very hard worker with our colleague Sandy De Leon and Gay Laksina. Gay Laksina is now a professor at the School of Archaeology, the former Archaeological Studies program at UP. And here is the sediments deposit, mainly clay and a bit of volcanic debris, tephra, and showing where these materials are found in between. So they're very easy to excavate, in fact, not so difficult. The sediment is very loose. Next, please. But quite far, Naidi is there, Song Song, and this is Chadpidan. This is the map of Batan, where you have a number of sites with distribution. This was a volcano, still quite active, which is the reason why we have to come back, because it's been repeatedly erupting also, and forming all these archaeological sediments. And that is Sumet, where we concentrate and see the earliest evidence of occupation on top of the mountain. Next, please. So here is the picture of that map. These are the two sites, and this is the present-day village. You have the church. Of course, it's like a Spanish pueblo or a town, and these are all houses. And the sites are there, the archaeological sites. And my colleague Peter Bellwood and I felt that in the Neolithic and Metal Age, this is still a part of the beach area. It's a low-lying area where people cannot live here. So it was because of the erosion that formed after this series of eruption that began to have the formation of this lowland mass here for people's settlement. The beach is very quite near here. So this island has a beach area with sand. Next, please. Very nice Batanes. So again, the red slip, characteristic of the Austronesian, and this is from Taiwan, this is from Batanes, and some of the handles of pottery. So these are the ancient type of pottery that we recover in Batanes. Next, please. And again, this is spindle wheel, the biggest one we saw, which probably is an instrument to get fiber from many plant remains. And these were probably fishing implement to tie for deep sea fishing, like weights. And again, the type of adzes that were found in Batanes, and very crude like this, before they will be grounded like this to make them smooth. Next. Here's the distribution of Austronesians in the Philippines. from Batanes Island, Cagayan Valley. Then we have Novaliches in Manila, Rizal, Calatagan, Batangas, and then Bondok Peninsula, and then Sorsogon, Kalanay. Solheim work a lot here, and I think the Kalanay, Sawin Kalanay sequence is also a part of the Austronesian tradition. My colleague Big Paz work here in El Nido. Then I work also in Palawan, in Quezon, and Bohol. I work in Bakong and Maitum, and then Balut Island, very near Indonesia. I think you have an island very near here. And I can see many Indonesians already were habitating here, and there are Indonesian immigration, in fact, here. I was there some time ago, and it was a very nice island. You can go from here to Makassar, in fact. They have a local trip, but international, in fact. So next, please. So here is Nagsabaran, Shell Maiden site in Lalo, main in Luzon. And this is the Shell Maiden. And then you have a little hiatus and then a little more shell. And that is the Neolithic level. Here is our colleague, Peter Bellwood, examining some of the material remains, artifacts of the Neolithic period in the deepest level. This is about almost 3 meters, 2.8, something like that. And then you have these adses and pottery here and some bones. So very clearly from this kind of sedimentation that the Neolithic was occupied quite early, and this can be the remains of shell that were consumed by human and probably also by natural. But shell has become very important, and they can make shell to ferment them and for their food every day, or as a bile aside from salt. So shell is a very useful material for them, or source for food, and they can go for long distance travel having the fermented shell. Next, please. Austronesians have both. This is Phil Piper, our IPPA Secretary General now, and these are Lingling O, still made of pottery and spindle whorl, and of course adses found in this level. So here, Metal Age period, you have a lot of pottery and jar burials, beads and metals. Next, please. Post holes in the. So here is Lalo. This is how you will see them in the surface. A lot of shell, and of course they made this as a welcome zone representing shell, bivalve batisa. So tremendously many shells. Next, please. I was just there a month ago, 2 months ago in Lalo, and we were still excavating some. So this is a dentate decorated pottery that comes from Lalo, and it is very similar to those found in the Marianas. And again, it shows the direct connection between Philippines and some other like Lapita. This is the kind of decoration. If you notice this dentate, I think the instrument they use here is like the tattooing instrument that is like a comb, and then they just impress. So next, please. Taiwan is like our colleague Hide Pume Ogawa and Dr. Ame Garom, Dr. Bulunya now. And so again, working in the Lalo shell maiden deposit. The Maga pit is about 8 meters of shell sediment cross section, very deep. It was found actually by Professor Yoji Aoyagi from Japan. Next, we work there a lot, and this is a cross section of the odds that found there. So very big. Some of these materials may not be found in the Philippines, but actually brought as material and then made there. Next. Next, please. So again, line-filled shell decoration, which are more common in the Marianas, and circle stamp with dentate, the characteristics of the Austronesian pottery decorations and design. So Lingling O is still made of earthenware and spindle work. These are the objects that have like the toolkit or the Austronesian characteristics. Next, please. So here is an extensive excavation of the shell here, quite deep. This is Dr. Amigarong, and you can see this is about 8 meters. And that's why we are trying to recommend this as a World Heritage Site also, if UNESCO will approve of it. But it's still a long way because the documentation would take a long time. Next, please. Have you ever been here, Patruman? In Lalo, Cagayan Valley? Or only in Calao? So this is Cagayan Valley. So these are all the distribution of the shell midden. And right now, I am here in the working last month in the Dombrique property. And this is Kazuhiko Tanaka. And again, we see the same pattern of the Metal Age and then hiatus and then the Neolithic level, 1996. Next, please. Oh, yeah, here I have labeled. This is a more recent excavation, like this year and about 2018, about the same square we excavate. Some burials were found here. It's a mixed burials between human and animals, in fact. So there are midden, that's why it's called midden. It's a pit burial. They have everything there. So that is a little bit tricky to excavate because it's a mixed deposit. So we are trying to understand that kind of population, how they dispose their dead in a shell midden site. So some have the jar burials, but some were just disposed, whether they were enemies or what. So still we do not know the complexity of this population. Next, please. Palawan is a jar burial in Manunggul site in near Tabon, and it is represented by the ship of the dead. So the boat has been becoming a very fine symbol for the Philippines and island Southeast Asia. So inside is skeletal remains, but not a complete one, only for jar burial. And I think in Indonesia, the Ngaju religion is still practiced the kind of belief that is represented in this Manunggul jar. So, but now they have a wooden coffin and all the kinds of symbolism related to this Manunggul jar. They have the spirit, guidance of the spirit, and the spirit of the dead being led by him in a boat, where if this is a bird, this man or this is a male, and if it is a snake, it will be a female. It go down, and that is the symbolism that I read in the Ngaju religion in Borneo near Dayak. Next, please. So the Metal Age has this nephrite, Lingling O, double-headed animal, and mainly this kind. And of course, there are more of these in Vietnam and and Thailand and Taiwan. And Indonesia maybe has a little bit. Next, please. So Linamyanan, again, dentate design, pottery. I'll just show a number of sites, circle stump design. This is in Palawan also. Next, please. So again, the pattern of materials are adses and axes, almost the same, very similar. It's like the toolkit that they have. Next, please. And then after the stone, you have the metals, bronze, socketed adze, and rings, similar to Lingling O, but now becoming metals. Next, please. So spindle whorl and shell disc, being in the island environment, we have a number of shell and carnelian beads also. Next. And Ilikay in El Nido, Palawan, work of Victor Paz. We have almost semicircle stamp design and all of these incise design and some impress design. Next. So characteristic of the Austronesian. This is in Ayog Cave, Maitu, Sarangani. It's in Mindanao, southern Mindanao. And I have excavated this in 1991. Next, a secondary burial. So here is the cave, and these are some of the layers that we have detected inside the cave to reconstruct the long occupation of its burial practices from 5 BC to AD 370. Next. So here's a more complete one where this was dated properly with C14. And this is in the context of the excavation, jar 21. That was me several years ago, 1991, during the excavation of this cave. And some metals I found also here inserted, spearheads. Next. And many anthropomorphic faces, and no one looks alike, but they're all different. So meaning to say, suggesting a large number of population and an artistry made from pottery at that time, around 2,000 years ago. Next. So here are the non-anthropomorphic figures. So this is the one that was a logo of ASP, now School of Archaeology. And they were painted red and also with hematite. Some have combination design, bound pandel impression with texture of the pot. Next. So here, the two-tone angular jar, it's just a small one, and probably a container of bones, mainly finger bones and teeth were put inside the secondary burial jar. So this is the logo. And of course, there are snake here, snake figures, and the combination of a quadrangular jar with painted red hematite. Next, please. So here is Palembang. You have Palembang also in Indonesia. And this is another example of pottery of the Austronesian period and footed presentation jar or this found there. So they were all distributed everywhere up to Mindanao and Indonesia. Next, please. So Magsuhot Bakong, this is a pattern that we see there in Bakong, and perhaps this is already about 500 AD, 600 AD. Next, please. And good decoration and tronconical jar, a combination of many jars, and then perhaps incense burner were also found. Next. So here's another coffin burial. It's not a jar, but rectangular in shape and has anthropomorphic figurines and also well decorated with different sizes of almost the same type of vessels. Next, maybe one on top of the other. So these were the anthropomorphic figures. I don't know if this looked like Hanuman or maybe there were already some Hindu Buddhistic tradition with this one, mixed with the archaeological Iron Age deposit. Next, this is the reconstruction of the jar, and it has a letter M, which may suggest the mountains there, Cuernos de Negro or Mount Talinis, very symbolic for them. It's still an active volcano also, about 600 AD. Next, please. So here's another jar, which I presented before, and human figurines sitting on top of this, perhaps an incense burner, and another with beads, but that was reconstructed. Next, please. So, Balut Island, Sarangani in southern Mindanao, very close to Indonesia here. And after this is already Indonesia, Balut Island. So next, please. I have explored and found also there, Maluku, Site 1, this kind of pottery. I did not have the excavation yet, the systematic excavation, but only exploration in this island. Next. So again, the kinds of decorated pottery are very similar. These were taken from Solheim's exploration in 1979, then compared with Calatagan 1982, and then Indonesia by Bellwood 1978 and 1980. So it joins actually these geographic islands into one because of the seafaring activities of this Austronesian in the Talawud Island. Next, please. So again, some boat representations in this island called Balut, and very similar, I think, to some of the Indonesian images. And they were rock art, but they were stylized. Some people already put some red paint on the engravings for us to see. Otherwise, it's very difficult to see them. Next, please. So in Sorsogon, Southern Luzon, this was my early work, Tigkiw na Saday, and jar burial, very plain. But again, I think they were in the culture of the Austronesians, our primary burial and secondary burials. Next. And here is San Juan, back on Sorsogon. We have in situ of the jar itself, excavated in 1979. And the cover is made of stone instead of another jar. So it has a groove to fit into the rim of the earthenware jar burial. Next. And it's in the south, and a number of them, you can see that they were also well distributed. Next, please. We'll just go through this. Bagatao. Again, these decorations are very, I think, prevalent for this pottery in another island in Magallanes, Sorsogon. Next. And Institute, Solheim, 1951, Bondok Peninsula, see, that's why black and white. Again, the stone with the grove to fit the jar, and then extended burial outside. I haven't seen this kind, but a combination of burial, jar burial and extended burial. Next. And again, Macabog, Aroroy, Solheim, 1954, before I was born. He was already excavating there in Masbate. Next, please. So in Karikaran, back on Sorsogon, I went back and found another evidence of another site suggesting this kind of pottery of the Austronesian. Next, please. So here, back on, so this is very prominent. This is my tomb. So again, we can link all these characteristics into a one tradition. Next. Oh, that is, I think, the almost end. Daud is there, and still very young. This is Dr. Arman Mijares, and Xiao Chung Hung, Archie, and of course Peter Bellwood. Next, please. So the Austronesian journey continues. I joined, this is an experimental voyage using a double hull canoe, which was tied together, made it into a ramp, which is more likely that was used by Austronesian because it's a very stable boat and you don't need the outrigger actually to balance it. And people can live there, can cook there, so it has a platform. So most likely, I think these are the kinds of vessels that Austronesian might have used. And this gentleman here, he was 85 years old at the time. He made a journey from Bohol up to Tikopia, Anuta Island for 3 months. And each month, there are scientists getting into the boat and experiencing this voyage without engine, just these two sail. So one of my works is to raise this sail, and it was quite heavy. But again, I think very effective for two sail to be together, that you can go against the wind. One will funnel here, and the wind can send its direction to another one. And so even if the wind is going like this, you can go against the wind. So that is the technique, I think, that I learned in this Austronesian journey to Polynesia. Next, please. And so again, we have the map now. Borobudur, Prambanan, Sulawesi included, and Tawi-Tawi being the region of the Austronesians in diaspora. So again, your team is very much related to this map. So next, please. Thank you very much. This is our tent in Batanes when we were doing the excavation in 2006. So terima kasih to all of you. I hope my lecture was made clear.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dizon, for a very comprehensive study about Austronesian in the Philippines. So we are now open for a question from the audience. You can ask the question directly by raising your hand, and you can also put the question in the chat box. Buat teman-teman di Indonesia juga bisa bertanya dengan bahasa Indonesia. Sepertinya saya akan berusaha sebaik mungkin untuk mentranslasikan ke dalam bahasa Inggris. So while we are waiting for the question, Professor, I would like to ask a little bit, what do you think motivate the people of Austronesian people to embark in such a very dangerous exploration? From Taiwan to Batangas and to northern Luzon, and then they ended up in the Pacific. So, what do you think motivate them into such an exploration?
I have an idea that there may have been a natural calamity during those periods, probably a number of tsunamis that were going on because of the changes in sea level pattern. And that these natural calamities may have affected their settlement near the sea. That's why they were so afraid to move up in the mountains. When they saw the island of Itbayat, it was very high, and then it is a limestone formation. So they climbed and settled on top of Torongan Cave and inside Torongan Cave. So that is only a suggestion, which maybe future archaeologists may like to find out using different kinds of weather patterns and evidences of this kind. some people, like our colleague from France, suggested that there was a big meteorite that dropped by the Indian Ocean, which caused turmoil and caused also these kinds of tsunami. And I think, again, the nature of the people is to keep themselves safe, other than there were warfares, or they don't, they fight among each other looking for land. But I think there will be another major factor why they have to move, and it's a necessity for them to do this. If you question about the food, I think they have sufficient food in tropical island environment, Southeast Asia. It's never been a problem like maybe Easter Island or these kinds of ideas. But for us, I think we have a very rich environment, especially fishing. Austronesians have the evidence of deep sea fishing, pelagic fishing, in fact. So they move around, I think, using their own kind of skills and bringing their technology. And they were just good explorers, I think.
Yeah, so when they did the island hopping from one island to another, for example, they will encounter the pre-occupying indigenous people. So they have to interact with them. So is there any evidence that's showing this type of interaction based on the artifactual remains?
In Batanes, there is almost no evidence of interaction with people. As I mentioned before, and this is a findings between like Bellwood and even Daud, I think, that there were no Negritos in Batanes. There were no indigenous populations when the Austronesians moved into Batanes. But in northern Luzon, I think there were already some kind of Negritos there. And in fact, the dissertation of Dr. Arman Mijares talks about kind of interaction between two types of people wherein the pottery moved. I think, the Negritos or the native population were hunter-gatherers. And here comes the Austronesians with their pottery, and they were settled in villages where the hunter-gatherers move around. But we see some kind of mixed artifacts in some caves in Cagayan Valley, for example, and even in Calao. I worked in Rabel Cave with Pak Willie, and we see those kind of patterns. Why lithics were with the pottery? Normally, this is not supposed to be. But they were all over the place. You have pottery and lithics artifacts. So it means to say there were some kind of interaction, at least in northern Luzon, regarding this kind of question that you have asked. Very good question.
Thank you. We ask for the audience to ask the question. Okay, there is one question from Alan Torres. Alan, would you like to ask the question directly? Okay, I will just read the question from Alan Torres. How common do we find rock art in the Philippines, like the ones found in Penablanca, Cagayan?
Yeah, it's not very often. And before, they were not well studied until Halandoni came, and then we did the preliminary work with Mylene Leasing, and then Pamela before, just a basic documentation. And at that time, we did not have the antiquity of this rock art or charcoal drawing. But now I think they were dated to around 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So it suggests also a kind of antiquity. I think many things have to be explored. Some of these caves were not really excavated yet. So, meaning to say, the rock art were just dated as rock art. So, it does not have the connection yet with the occupation of the cave.
Can we associate the rock art with the Austronesian expansion, or it's completely separate, or it's remain inconclusive for that?
It's still inconclusive. At that time, we thought, my colleague Ray Santiago thought that they were products of Negritos also, doing this, whatever kind of symbolism they want to express. There are some leaves, there are some other figures, geometric pattern that we don't really understand. So, but basically, they were man-made, and we don't really know much about that culture yet. Unlike Indonesia, I think you have a better grip now of your rock art in antiquity, 30,000 years ago. So that's Paleolithic period, that early, comparatively with the European. And you have the oldest rock art in Indonesia, and I don't think they were Austronesians. They were from other population that evolved and then developed this kind of culture.
Okay, thank you, Bong. We seem to have two questions now. First, I would like to invite Lisa. Please, you can ask the question directly.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Dr. Bong. I'm Lisa. Last year, I was conducting a research on Biak, Papua, and about astronomy tradition in Biak, Papua. I'm wondering because it seems that in Philippines and in Biak, there's also a trace of Austronesian culture, like Lapita culture, and so on and so on. But I think it's more it's a little bit close, yeah, between Biak and Philippines. In Biak, I found a high knowledge about astronomy, but now they almost extinct the traditional knowledge, but some people still hold the knowledge. But I wonder, in Philippines, during your excavation, is there any artifact or maybe knowledge that you found that related to the astronomical things or astronomical sign, to show that how the Philippine and Austronesian in Philippines in prehistory, they also use astronomy as maybe for navigation, because they're hopping from islands to island. I think they must be using astronomy. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Well, I agree with you, but it is a very difficult thing to link astronomy to archaeology. But in Batanes, again, before my collaboration with Peter Bellwood, I was excavating boat-shaped burials. And these were stone arranged boat on top of the burial. And they suggest the orientation, the maritime orientation of the people. And there was an attempt of one of my students to look at this in relation to the stars, but it never materialized because some kind of problem happened, funding. But it's a sign because the landscape where I should have put also a picture of that. And but you can see that in other publication, you can see that they are well oriented to the sea. I do not know at night, because I am not an astronomer, so if they were related to the stars. But again, the knowledge of sailing people using the stars has always been documented, even in Taiwan, even in some other islands in the Pacific. I haven't talked to fishermen directly, but it seems that they go fishing at night and using also the moon and the stars as their guides. They don't have GPS, but they don't get lost unless there is a big typhoon that would sweep them away. So that is only my idea regarding your question.
Okay, is it okay, Lisa?
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Bong.
Thank you for the question. And we move on to the next question. I think Mas Hari raised his hand before. Mas Hari Octavianus.
Okay, can you hear me right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Pak Bong is I think the first archaeometallurgist in Philippines. So I think I want to to ask about the metals. You mentioned about the metals, evidence of the irons in the one of your slides about so in the Philippines, why is the evidence of the metals is I think it's not really many. So what is because the resource of the geological resource of the metals, or probably there is something else, because as we know, the metals we found in Sulawesi, we found the resource of metal in Sulawesi. There is a possibility of this. There is a exchange between the Sulawesi and the Philippines because it's close each other. It's my first question. My second question is about the name you mentioned about the Palembang, Palembang in Philippines. So it's very unique, because what is the mean of the Palembang in Philippines language? Because in Indonesia we have the Palembang in Sumatra, in the South Sumatra. It's same. Is the capital of the city of the Palembang. So thank you. Only two questions.
Okay, the first question is a very famous question, that we don't have a very large-scale mining so far on iron materials in the Philippines. Indonesia has a much better archaeological remains of this type. And our reconstruction, my professor Vincent Pigot and me, analyzing the iron age and metal age in the Philippines, we think that there were itinerant metalsmiths coming from probably Indonesia and Malaysia, and they just go around with these seafarers who would cater their services to the Philippines, bringing with them some of the materials. Some archaeological remains in the Philippines were mainly maintenance type of metalworking rather than manufacturing type, because metalworking demands a very large energy to extract from the ore to the finished smelting operation, and you need a number of people and some kind of ruler or a technical know-how to do this, including the construction of forge and some other types of stove. So the question is rather that the metalsmith go around island Southeast Asia in the Philippines and deliver his trade to these people who will need. That's why in my analysis, there was really no uniformity on the kind of metals that we excavate in the Philippines. Now, I think that is a very good model to see whether it's bronze, gold, or iron. And the ancient metallurgy is a kept secret technology that was only given to some of these metallurgists. So it's not for all. Unlike pottery, pottery is well distributed. Many people can do pottery, but not many people can do iron work or even a blade. So it's a very specialized. So that's why you have special people to do this and to distribute this. Your second question, again,
Is
It's
the
about the Palembang. What is
the Palembang,
terminology of the word of
it's a
Palembang?
linguistic. I think again, this is an Austronesian language. We have already also here in Magalang. I live nearby Magalang now in Pampanga. My town here is Mabalacat and next is Magalang. Palembang in South Cotabato, that is a town that was next to Maitum that I explored. I don't know the real connection, in fact, and I am not a linguistic to find out more about this spread of the languages. I'm just a simple prehistorian and archaeologist. But I because of my exploration, I go around this, and because of my friendship with Indonesia, I know that it is very linked to the Bahasa, Indonesia. In Sumatra, you have Magalang, Magelang, and so many. Bakong. Bakong is another a place that was very common. I think it's a very common Austronesian language that was kept by people and use and reuse the term. But whether or not there was a direct link that the people in Magelang, Indonesia, went to Philippines, or the people in Palembang in Indonesia, in Philippines went to Indonesia, I do not know that that kind of connection. Very difficult to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pak Bong. Thank you so much.
okay? Is there any other question for the participant? We are still waiting for the question. Okay. Maybe I will jump to the question about the lapita pottery. It's very famous tradition. Where do you think it's coming from, Prof? Bong? Is it from originated from the northern Luzon, or it was later developed in Oceania, like in Marianas Island? We still don't know where it was originated, or maybe you have a idea.
My suspicion, it originated in northern Luzon because of this kind of archaeological finds we see, we discover, we observe. And then it developed more into the more lapita type complex, the matured lapita. So the initial stamping and geometric patterns may have come from Lalo, Cagayan Valley. And then this sailing population, I think, who went to explore the Marianas would have already with them. And then when they reached Mariana, the culture developed and prospered into a more matured type of lapita pottery. The one in Bismarck, like that, and Caledonia, New Caledonia, they're very, very nice pottery.
Okay. And I would like to jump to Professor Truman Simanjuntak. Maybe you have a further insight about lapita pottery and how is it in Indonesia, the discovery of lapita pottery.
Okay, yeah. We found it in Kalumpang, yeah. Kalumpang. This is the oldest pottery with lapita motif so far in Indonesia. The date is around 3,500. It is really Neolithic. And then from Neolithic, as we see in the regional data, yeah, the pottery developed until Paleometallic period. We found in many sites in Indonesia with human figure decoration in pottery, such as in Bali, in Melolo, and also in Kalimantan. So based on the discovery in Kalumpang, which is the oldest date, in my view, Lapita pottery was originally from somewhere in Indonesia and maybe in the Philippines. I don't know the oldest date of the Lapita motif in the Philippines. Pak Bong knows it better. But if the date of the Lapita motif in the Philippines is older than 3,500 years BC, I think it is possible that the Philippines is the early development of the Lapita motif. This is from pottery decoration perspective, of course. We still need more and more studies about this. This is for just the first indication.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Truman. We're still waiting for the question, but while waiting, maybe I would like to invite wait, I think there is one question.
I could ask the question.
Oh yeah, you can ask the question directly, please. Alan Torres.
Hello, Professor Bong. This is Alan. I have a question. For the longest time, our history books stated that the oldest cave paintings were the ones in Lascaux, France, which is around 15,000-year-old. But we recently found that the cave paintings in Indonesia is much older, which is around 44,000-year-old. So what do you think is the political implication of this, with a prior point of view that Mesopotamia and European nations were the cradle of civilization, and that the islands which were in Southeast Asia were considered uncivilized by the Europeans?
Okay, so probably the question is a little bit out of our topic, our discussion here, but I think, of course, Professor Bong Dizon and Professor Truman Simanyuta can give some insight about this. So maybe start with Professor Truman about the implication of the discovery of the oldest cave paintings.
Yeah, that's true that we have one of the oldest rock painting in Indonesia. In my view, this is coincidence. It is possible that in the different place, there is a development of the same culture. For instance, there is a development of the rock art in Europe at the same time as in Indonesia. Because if we see the motif of the rock painting in both regions, there are many differences. And of course, it depends on the adaptation model of the modern human to their environment. This is my view. No connection between the rock painting in Indonesia and in Europe. I mean, cultural connection. This is coincidence.
Okay. Is it okay, Alan? Or Pak Bong, do you want to add something about this question, please?
Yes, I think culture is so independent and culture reacts on its environment. If you look at the rock art paintings in Indonesia, they represent a very tropical environment. In Europe, they represent a temperate environment. You have big animals. Indonesia and Philippines, you have small scale, but it's the culture developing. People, as they are people, they have their own culture. So it's an expressive symbol regarding their own culture to represent this in cave art, I think. So that is my opinion also, that it does not have to be connected. You have an independent or co-evolution. We call it co-evolution. Like in Batanes, we have the boat-shaped burial, and they have the same boat-shaped burial in the Vikings, but there was no connection. There was no connection. And it's a maritime adaptation of the culture that they have. So it is represented in their own cultural adaptation, I think. And as human, they develop this.
Okay.
Thank you.
We still have time for a couple of questions more. So is there any other question here? Maybe Pak Daud would like to add something about the method of archaeology. In this case, we only involve the archaeology, basically the anthropology study about Austronesian, like archaeology and then linguistic. And we also have several insights from the genetic studies about Austronesian dispersal. But what beyond that, Prof. Daud? Would you like to give some ideas about what type of collaboration between disciplines to embark more about, or to know more about the Austronesian expansion?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank CPAS for inviting me in this very important occasion, and I'm very happy to see Bong again, although it's only from the Zoom, yeah, from distance. Yeah, I see that there is no much changes, Bong. Something like 15 years ago, it's almost the same. Yeah, I amazed about that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, actually there are some notes that I also want to share with you about the Austronesian prehistory, but because of the question already asked to me about the method, actually almost every discipline who can contribute something to give more knowledge about Austronesian, of course, it will be very good to join in the multidiscipline research. Yeah, I think like science also help us with some of the, for example, trace element, yeah, and genetic as well, and also there are some anthropology approach, like how we try to reconstruct the structure of the society for Austronesian, for example, yeah, like how they relate one group with other group, yeah. So I think almost all the science that can help us are also all the discipline that can help us. We can put it together, work together, collaborative research. Yeah, so it will help me, help us to reveal more about the knowledge of Austronesian people and Austronesian migration. Yeah, basically that. There is no quite specific methodology that we need to limit it or to exclude it from the science that we need to discover or uncover many aspects about Austronesian, even from the for example, for agricultural technology, etc. yeah, we can have some insight. Yeah, so there is no limited science or knowledge that should be neglected or something like that. Yeah, so every knowledge or every science can help us to reveal more about Austronesian people. Yeah, that's my comment about the question that you asked, Pak Mirsa. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pak Daud. It's a very clear explanation. But there is one more thing from me. Do you think, before your closing remark, because this is not your closing remark yet, so just a question. So do you think our government should invest more in the study about Austronesian, and what could be the benefit for our knowledge in general about this?
Yeah, it's actually it depends on our performance as well as an archaeologist, or even all the approaches on how we can present our knowledge about the Austronesian, and how can we make use of our knowledge not only for the about the past, our knowledge about the past, but also now, useful for people now and the future. It's depend on us, because government will not invest if we only have the knowledge about the past and have nothing to do with today and tomorrow. That is not investation, I guess. So it is up to us to try to make to convince the government that our knowledge about Austronesia, it will be helpful for the today and the future. That's very important for us. Otherwise, government will reluctant to invest money, or if we have nothing to contribute for the today and the future. That's my opinion. So it is up to us now, how we can show to the government that our study, our knowledge about Austronesian can help people today and tomorrow, for example.
Thank you very much, Prof. Daud, for the answer. So we move on to the next question, but I think there is no more question from the chat box. Maybe Ibu Retno would like to share something about your recent discovery about the Austronesian in Sumbar. Bu Retno? Bu Retno, are you still here? Okay. Is there any other question from the participant?
May I ask question?
Yes.
Recently, I was intrigued by this, I don't know, news or like from the Facebook about Gunung Padang. You know the site in Gunung Padang, Sumatra?
Yes, we all know about Gunung Padang.
In West Java.
It's a very famous site.
West Java.
To me,
West Java.
yeah, it's a very good presentation of the stone structures, megalithic. And I don't know how credible the research is, and that like a geologist have analyzed the stone that they come from elsewhere and then mined there for in prehistory. But of course, for us archaeologists, it remains a question, and probably only in the more recent time, during the time of Austronesians, when you have this kind of site. So what is the status of this site, Gunung Padang?
So I will let anyone who would like to respond to this question, but I guess maybe Ruli Fauzi would like to say something about this. Ruli Fauzi, are you still here, or
Prof Truman probably, and Prof Daud?
Yes, of course. But before that, maybe we can ask, or he's not. He's apparently very busy right now. So
there is Pak Lutfi Yondri in here. Lutfi Yondri, yeah. So, also.
Pak Lutfi is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Pak Lutfi Yondri, would you like to respond to the question from?
Yeah, I got the prayer before. I was enjoying about the meeting. I was Asar prayer.
Okay.
What's the question about it?
So it's a current development of the studies in Gunung Padang, the status of how it is. How do you call it? The
status right
it's
now.
More like a validity of the research and
Okay. Okay, the validity research is related about the archaeological method, how to date about Gunung Padang site, how to find the material to make a chronology. The Gunung Padang site is a structure. Before structure built, I try to find the old surface before a structure built, and at the surface of when the structure built, I find the charcoal, the cultural charcoal, and I try to date about the charcoal, and I find the dating about it is around 170 before 117 years before century, not long time ago, like the other expert says about that. Yeah, we know beneath of Gunung Padang site is a geological source, and then the society came to Gunung Padang and built a stone terrace to make a sacred site at Gunung Padang around that Cianjur area. I think it's a tool. And the material, also the cultural material I found in Gunung Padang, also find the poetry, so not another archaeological remains, not all from, but that's also poetry and hammerstones, as part of activity and polymetal period at the last. That's all I think is, but Gunung Padang is not at all from 200 2000 years ago, like the Andy Arif team says about Gunung Padang.
Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Truman, would you like to add something about Gunung Padang?
Yeah,
please.
Just brief information. So Gunung Padang is megalithic. Yeah, we know that megalithic in Indonesia developed since several centuries before our new era and continued to develop until now, especially in certain region in Indonesia. So looking for this regional data, there is no, what they call that, claim that Gunung Padang is pyramid dated to 20,000 years ago or 15,000 years ago, something like that. They claim it is very old, and below the top of the megalithic remains that we found there are a big space, and inside of this space there are so many treasures. Yeah, we can use these treasures to pay the debt of the country. So what I want to say that if you want, the archaeology is very popular, yeah, just give a hoax. Don't mention the truth. Just give a hoax, and everybody will very interested to know that. Now Gunung Padang is a megalithic developed since several centuries ago. The same, I think Pak Lutfi has already the complete data about this. This is the truth, Pak Bong.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for such clarification from Professor Truman. There's one question from RR Avelana. Would you like to address the question directly, please? Avelana? Oh, you have no audio. How can you hear us? This question is for our Indonesian colleagues. Are there indications that megaliths of Mada Valley, Sulawesi, are in one way or another related to Austronesian? So I think, again, Professor Truman is the only professor who can answer this question, maybe.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Are there indications that the megaliths of Mada Valley in Sulawesi are in one way or another related to Austronesian?
Yes, sure. Megalithic of Bada are related to the later Austronesian, not Neolithic, but megalithic. And the date they have right now is around 2500 BP. And I think it still continued to the later period. This is megalithic.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Truman. I think we are a little bit running out of time, but before we move into the closing remark from Dr. Daud, I would like to ask the final question to Dr. Bong. What is next, Prof. Dizon? What do you think we need to study further about Austronesian, and especially in terms of collaboration work, bilateral work, collaboration work about Austronesian? What we really need to focus on to have to shed more light about the Austronesian expansion?
Well, I think I agree with Professor Daud that we need some kind of a multidisciplinary study with genomic now. I think genomic research has been becoming very, very popular, and many laboratories are engaged or looking for samples to do this kind of analysis. And this probably called population studies across the big geographical area will be very important. The next thing for archaeology is to look at the settlement pattern, how the settlement pattern of this Austronesian changed through time, and in their movement, in their colonization or exploration of many other lands, both in the mainland and island Southeast Asia. So these two kinds of activities, I think, should be engaged by our new colleagues, new archaeologists who would rather deal with the problem of Austronesian studies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bong. I think we are now running out of our time for this talk show, so we shall move to our next closing remark by Dr. Daud. So the mic is yours, Pak Daud.
Okay, thanks, Pak Mirza. Yeah, so when I see the presentation by Bong, so it's recall me to some years ago when I joined the expedition by Museum National Philippines with Bong and colleagues with Pak Peter Bellwood. Yeah, I really enjoy their hospitality, and I got many good experience with them. Yeah, I learned a lot about the Austronesian. Yeah, and I'm very, very happy. Yeah, because this is make me have more something like a capital to know more about the Austronesian of in Indonesia, for example. Yeah, and the presentation itself is relatively short for the long and richness of the Austronesian material in Philippines, but it is quite clear, yeah, and clear and comprehensive, yeah. And from Dr. Bong Dizon presentation, we realize that there are many cultural elements which are similar to Indonesian or to that of Indonesia, especially in the northeastern part of Indonesian archipelago. Yeah, like Talaut, Maluku. Yeah, and this is very interesting, and this can give us the awareness that when we talk about the Austronesian in Indonesia, it is better to also look more in a regional context. Yeah, like the Philippines, especially because we have seen that there are many similarities between the archaeological material in Philippines and Indonesia. And as we know, yeah, the Philippines is more close to the Taiwan, where the source of Austronesian originated. Yeah, so it is of course the Philippine side usually is more older than in Indonesia. Yeah, and the other thing that maybe we can learn, of course, from the especially the Philippine prehistory, especially in the northeastern part or north part from the Philippines. This is very important location where, in my opinion, this is where the Austronesian branch off, yeah, from Taiwan and then to northern Philippines and branch off. Yeah, one could to south and another to east, and I think also to the west. Yeah, and this is following what, according to me, maybe what is called by some oceanographers as a Indonesian through flow. This is a very strong current which flow from the Pacific into Indonesian archipelago, yeah, and then going out to the Indian Ocean. This is, I think, it's not too many archaeologists learn about that. The role of the Indonesian through flow, yeah, because as we see, there is something like divided cultural landscape, something like that. Yeah, when we can see that the western part of Indonesia is quite different to the eastern part of Indonesia, and the Philippine material is more closest to the eastern part of Indonesia. Yeah, I think we have to take more attention on that. Yeah, although there is still no study about relation between the archaeological or the movement of Austronesian people from Taiwan to the ocean area, and not only ocean, but almost in the island of Southeast Asia and even to Madagascar. and to the ocean, to the Oceania. Yeah, but I think this is a potential study that we need to do. Yeah, to reveal more about the Austronesian movement. Yeah. And another thing that we can learn from the Batanes Island, for example, there is what Dr. Bong Dizon mentioned about the counter-stream migration from the Itbayat to Landu. Yeah, I think Orchid Island. Yeah, yeah. After they already arrived and settled Philippines. Yeah, this is, I think, very important, and I believe that's also happened in Indonesian area as well. So sometimes we only think that the migration happened just one direction, but not with the counter migration. So if we talk about like what is the origin of, for example, Lapita. Of course we can depend on the chronological approach, but also we have to understand the movement of the people, not only one way, but also sometimes two ways or even multi direction, for example. So maybe it could be happen when people already move and develop this a new innovation in the new place, and then go back again and introduce the new innovation to the homeland. So maybe we need to consider about that when we talk about the migration of people. I see that maybe but as Bong mentioned about, I take note about the ship arrangement for the burial. Bong. Before you mentioned about that, I remember that you show me one of the stone arrangement with ship shape, which is maybe the burial, burial ship shape, So we have also this kind of monument, like in Tanimbar Island, for example. So maybe there is also direct link. And also, for example, someone asked about the Mada. If we see the San Juan burial, with the something like pottery, and it's covered with the stone, I guess. Is that true, Bong? It's covered with stone. The usual one of the pottery, San Juan burial, jar burial. It's covered with stone. In top of the pottery on the pot.
The jar is pottery, but the cover is a volcanic tooth, or sometimes
that's correct.
andesite.
We found it a lot in Mada as well. So I believe that this can also answer the question whether Mada is Austronesian or not. If the San Juan burial is Austronesian, then I believe that the Mada also Austronesian. And another aspect which is quite interesting me is the Mak Suhot burial coffin. It seemed to me it's just quite like the Waruga, where people use the house's shape to bury the crops. But Waruga is more made of a stone. This one is made of earthenware. Yeah. So, but the concept is just the same. And traditionally, ethnographically, people from North Sulawesi still using what they call as balongsong. This is also in the form of house. Yeah, but it's made of wood. Yeah, I think this is still related to the tradition is also related. Yeah, so I think there is, like Dr. Bong has also mentioned, that there are many waves of migration, or if not migration, also cultural relationship, yeah, between Philippines and also North Sulawesi. Yeah, I think there are many evidence that show and demonstrate about this relationship. I think Waruga burial also found in Kota Batu. Yeah, yeah. So house-shaped stone burial. I guess they found it in Kota Batu, and I guess Kota Batu close to in Mindanao or
Mindanao.
Mindanao, yeah, okay,
Mindanao.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's all the that show that how important we need to study our Austronesian in Indonesia, not only in Indonesia, but also to compare it in regional context, so we can understand more about the Austronesian in the region. Yeah, I think more collaborative research should be done, yeah, between the Philippines and also Indonesia and Malaysia as well, yeah, to see how is the migration of Austronesian can reveal our identity as a nation, of course, yeah. And also from the linguistic point of view, I also take note some of the, like, actually Philippines have also kalumpang, right? Well, yeah, like in South Sulawesi, yeah, there are many, and also you mentioned about Batak, yeah, Batak, yeah, they also have that, yeah, Batak, yeah, as well, yeah, yeah. And I saw in the map from the satellite image, you mentioned about Pulau Miangas, yeah, and we have also the northern island we have in Indonesia is also called Miangas. Yeah, yeah, Miangas. Yeah, so there are some relationship, yeah, in terms of the linguistic, and I'm not I'm quite sure that this is quite recent relationship still keep or maintaining by people over there. When I did my research in Talaut, there are quite busy traffic between the Mindanao, yeah, Davao, yeah, to Talaut as well. Yeah, there are many people from Philippines, yeah, from Mindanao, from Sarangani, yeah, who sail to Talaut, and they brought them with them, like chicken, yeah, and there are some local product from their country, and then traded with some of our product in Indonesia, and then they are go back again, just in few days. Yeah, so I think this is a very close relationship between the Philippines and Indonesia, especially in the eastern part. And I think we need to explore more about the alternative routes. Yeah, yeah. Maybe like Pak Truman also suggested that there are some influence from the Austro-Asiatic in the from Asia, Southeast Asian continent, that might be bring some people as well, yeah, to Indonesia, especially in the western part. Yeah. So I think I just have some note about what have already presented by Dr. Bong Dizon, and again very appreciate what have already presented by Professor Bong. That's really give us some idea about how Austronesian migration happened to Philippines and also relation to Indonesia. Thank you, Bong.
Well,
Thank you very much, Dr. Daud, for your closing remarks. And I would like to express my gratitude, my thank you for all participants here, especially Dr. Bong Dizon and Pak Dr. Daud and Pak Truman Simanjuntak, Haris Sofian, and everyone who participate in this talk show. So next, I will hand over this mic to Haris Sofian. Thank you very much again for everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mirza Ansori, for as a moderator with this very, very nice talk and discussion. We know about the story about between Philippines and Indonesia. Hopefully, we will find more the connection between the Philippines and Indonesia. And thank you so much once again for the speaker of the Professor Dr. Bong Dizon and then Professor Truman Simanjuntak and Dr. Daud Aris Tanudirdjo as closing remarks, as very excellent remarks. And thank you so much for the Mirza Ansori to bring this talk show is live. And thank you so much for all the participants for today. And hopefully we will meet with the others episodes. And thank you so much for everyone. Okay.
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruli.
Maraming salamat po.
Walang anuman.
Thank you very much.
Boleh dipoto dulu.
See you again.
Sehat selalu Pak Daud,
Okay,
Prof.
selamat.
Dizon.
See you again.
Thank you.
Tolong dipoto bersama dulu. Foto
I miss
bersama.
nasi goreng. I
Oh,
like
foto.
nasi goreng.
Foto group.
Ke Jogja,
Oke.
Pak Bong, ke Jogja makan nasi goreng.
And then kambing also.
Sate.
Sate kambing. Pecel lele.
Pecel lele. Ya.
Pak.
Sudah
Manuk
dipoto.
Pak Dizon.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you Pak Bong. Thank you Pak Daud.
Pak Truman.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Foto udah.
Sudah
Ya,
dipoto belum?
satu-satu sudah.
Oke, thank you.
Send me a tape, a link.
Oke, terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih semua.
Halo,
Ya.
Pak Daud.
Yuk.
Sampai ketemu Selasa.
Ya. Oke.
Retno.
Halo, Bong.